No, son. No, I don't think so. Don't think so. No. I've been watching Rangers longer than you've been having more than Rangers than you've had hot. I've been watching Rangers a really long time, and you're really, really young. Basically, don't think you can have a shot for that distance at this stage in your Rangers career. You've been on the park a couple of minutes. You've been on the park a couple of minutes at most. It's your debut, and you think you're entitled to have a crack at goal and ruin a move that's gone for the back of the Brimlin Road stand, practically right the way up the wing, into the middle. You did well. You took it well. You're running well with the ball. That's fine. But you don't have a crack at goal into the Copeland Road stand, which wasn't even open this time last season. You don't have a crack into that stand for that distance when we're beating Panathinaikos by 1 goal to nil against 10 men. The same as we were the very first time we played Panathinaikos in Europe. The very first time we played them in Europe. Remember Emerson? It was Middlesbrough. We played Middlesbrough on Saturday. Emerson, he gave us a lead over there in Athens, the very first time we ever played them competitively, Panathinaikos, and they were down to 10 men and they equalised, and we're in the same situation just now. We're 1-0 up against them, they're down to 10 men, and you're going to ruin our chance for the first time in 5 games of beating Panathinaikos. I know we picked them out of the UEFA Cup in 2007-2008, but that was away goals. That's the first time we've beaten over 90 minutes. First time we've beaten over 90 minutes is there for the taking, and you think because you came from Mauritania to Paris when you were an amoeba, because you played for PSG when you were a fetus, you think because you've had 3 games for the under-4s at PSG that you're entitled on your Rangers debut to have a crack at goal for that kind of distance and ruin it. PSG mean to us. PSG, Ronaldinho, Mikel Arteta, Maurizio Pochettino, Nicolas Anelka, they were all playing for them. Come to Ibrox, can't score against us. We go to Paris, they can't score against us there either. We pit them out the UEFA Cup. The only time we ever played PSG, your so-called champions of Europe, in European club competition, we pit them out. That's how much PSG impress us. Know who you're playing for, son. Chelsea gubbed them. I know Chelsea are the new World Club champions, but last time we played Chelsea, we played them in a friendly here at Ibrox. No, Jose Mourinho, the special one, he was their manager. Beat them 2-0 going on 10-0. Philip Sebo, one of the worst players ever in our history. He managed to score against them that day. We don't care about these European... This is Rangers are playing for, son. You don't... Sheffield Wednesday, couple of seasons at Sheffield Wednesday, and you think you could have a crack for distance. You know what Willie Henderson said about Sheffield Wednesday? Willie Henderson, I'm playing the Steel Town Derby, and they were saying to him, Willie, it's going to be amazing. Willie, the atmosphere's going to blow you away. The Owls against the Blades, the Owls of Owlerton. Sheffield Wednesday, they won the league under a different... they were called the Wednesday. Then they became Sheffield Wednesday. I think they won the league twice as the Wednesday, and then they won it a couple of times as Sheffield Wednesday. Celtic fans out there probably thinking, I usually the same, usually 2 different clubs. But there's no trip. I'm not getting into that, son. I'm not getting into that. You think you play for Sheffield Wednesday? Willie Henderson said it was like a Wayne's picnic. The atmosphere was just a total non-entity, an absolute disappointment, because he'd played Old Firm derbies. He'd played in front of like 120,000. He'd played in crowds that were bigger than the population of Sheffield for Rangers against Celtic. So he didn't give a monkeys. But that's how much we think of Sheffield Wednesday. So you'll be taking stupid shots for 25 yards out, thinking you're going to 2-0. Nice goal, Mr. Gassama. And I don't know what to think anymore. I've been on holiday, I'm always on holiday, I don't do any work. I total skiver. I've been down the North York Moors. I was in Berlin. I think I was down the North York Moors and just been trying to get a fish supper along the A170 and all the way to Scarborough. And there's all these fish and chip shops that promise you, market towns and villages, and that's Sutton, Lahole, Helmsley, Pickering, named after Ron, who used to do the commentary for Superstars, the one place that Brian Jacks, a judo. Nobody watches judo, but Brian Jacks would always beat Kevin Keegan when it came to Superstars, and he was twice Ballon d'Or, Kevin Keegan. But there's a village named after, or a market town named after Ron Pickering, and it's in the boat in the North York Moors, and I was down there for 7 days, that whole area, just travelling about, in the motor, trying to get a fish supper. I was nowhere, I was doing any hill walking and that, because I drink too much, I eat too much, and I was looking at the state of me, I have to apologise, there needs to be some sort of filter or something I can get in these podcasts, so you don't have to look at me. I hope you're just listening to this, because my face is an even more of a disgrace than it usually is, but I'm not in a fit state. I just come along here with the basics, only ready for the basics. I didn't want any kind of up and down stuff, I didn't want any high emotion, I didn't want any kind of excitement. My body can't take it, my mind can't take it. I was down to 5 cans of San Miguel last night just to chill myself out, having driven through Middlesbrough for about 14 hours on my way. And how many times have I been down the North East? How many times have I driven down the North East of England via Middlesbrough? So many times. And yesterday, because we're playing Middlesbrough, didn't he go to Bruges? Supposed to be going to Bruges, went to Berlin instead in the first week of the summer holidays, didn't I tell you that? But that was to see Bruges at Ibrox, and I'm not going to go to Middlesbrough friendly, but I went to Middlesbrough yesterday. It's just something really. This was yesterday. By the time I get home, needed just the 5 cans of Gassama AND Igama. Doesn't sound like much, I know, sounds a bit tame, but when you put it together with everything else I've been having through the course of that relaxing week in the North York Moors, and a big house that looked like a cross between the hotel in Twin Peaks and the kind of place that Charlie McCorry's going to come a-courting Miss Laurie in the Searchers in the Jorgensen's house. So it was timber, it was a timber log cabin, and I just sat there watching Catchphrase, getting drunk after having had a day, getting lost in the roads round about the North York Moors. I'm not in a fit state. I thought it was just going. The manager tell us for a start he's not a manager, he's a head coach, and I'm going to keep forgetting that all season. It's going to take an old guy like me who's seen more games of football, seen more Rangers games in Europe than young Djeidi Gassaman's played, had hot dinners or whatever. It took an old guy like me was just expecting him to be called a manager, but he's actually called a head coach, and then he spent the whole 4-6 weeks he's been here, 4 weeks with the players, telling us there's a lot for them to take on board. It's not going to be plain sailing. There's a lot of physical preparation, a lot of physical conditioning, a lot of mental conditioning. They're having to take on board all these instructions and new tactics, what I want them to do, how I want them to play, and all that's a lot for me to take on board. So there's going to be little cracks appearing, there's going to be moments where it just doesn't go right, it's going to take a while to bed in, and it's not just him, it's not just the manager. More to the point, you've got these MK Dons podcasters, Southampton podcasters, Swansea City podcasters. You've also got the only guy I know who's ever had two separate articles in the same edition of When Saturday Comes. The same edition of When Saturday. And if you get When Saturday Comes every month, Harry Pearson's a total legend. Harry Pearson's got his column. He's got his own column in When Saturday Comes. But every now and then it'll be Cameron Carter who guests. There's a few other folk have guested for the Harry Pearson column, and you'll find out that Harry Pearson's done the Match of the Month feature, or he's done an obituary for Brian Glanville or something like that. There's only one guy I know. There's only one person ever, as far as I'm concerned, has done 2 articles in one edition of When Saturday Comes, and he's also like a professor or a doctor of journalism. He teaches journalism, sports journalism. He's a fellow of the Royal Society of Sports History. It's such an esteemed position of cleverness that I don't even know what the actual title is. I did congratulate him. It's my mate Hugh. He's a proper journalist, proper Fitbit guy, proper writer and all that, but he actually knows about this stuff. But he's also a born and bred Swansea City supporter, and he has said the same thing as all you're thinking. All these wee podcasters are just thinking Rangers are anti-woke. I'm going to wind up their supporters by saying, it takes ages for Russell Martin to get things going. But Hugh says, no. As I say, he said these guys are all right. It does take a while. It's a bit painful to watch at first. It takes a wee while to bed in, but when it does, it's worth it. And we're all thinking, is he going to get to October? Is he going to get to November? Russell Martin with Rangers. I've been thinking, well, he's going to have better kind of pro rata. He's going to have more talent at his disposal. He's got more funds at his disposal compared to most of the opposition in the domestic situation than he has had at MK Dons, Swansea and Southampton. So hopefully it'll work. It'll pay off a bit quicker, and that'll keep the Subway loyal off his back. The Subway loyal were out in force tonight because I was expecting it to be slow tonight. I was expecting the first half. The first half is what I was expecting. The first half was it's almost on the money, exactly what I was expecting. So I could scoff. As people booed, I could scoff at people booing. There wasn't many folk booing at half-time. Maybe they get booed at half-time against Bruges in the friendly. There was folk booing tonight as well, but not very many. They were getting glared at, they were getting told to shut up. But as new owners, new board, new management, new players, new fans are attracted. There's not a lot of room for new fans at Ibrox. Hopefully the new owners will get that sorted out. I'm saying 75,000 capacity, 72,000 minimum, maybe 64 is minimum. It has to be that kind of number, a number that's got good associations for us. But I get that capacity expanded, take the price of the tickets down and get lots of new supporters in there. But I thought the season tickets was some sort of thing in the paper. I was drunk looking for a fish supper in Pickering at the time. It flashed up on my phone, but we have hit a new high, I think, with the season ticket sales. I think we'll probably get an extra 5,000 season ticket holders or something this season, and they seem to watch football the same way that I watch tennis or I watch golf or I watch rugby, and it's a total tourist way that doesn't understand what's going on. I'll only watch the tennis when it's Andy Murray playing. Apparently doesn't play anymore, but I know Roger Federer was good because everybody told me he was good and he seemed to be winning things all the time. I didn't actually understand how good he was until I saw him playing Andy Murray, until I saw him playing somebody that I wanted to beat him, and I would just stop doing that. And my kind of thing was, Andy, just hit it on juice, advantage, just Jesus Christ, just hit them and fit through the telly and stuff like that, because I don't understand it. It's just frustrating, watching the golf and all that. Put in the hole, Colin, put in the hole. Monty, get in there, just put in the hole. And they never could in this. Just really frustrating. I didn't understand how the golf worked, so I wouldn't watch it again for a year, and then Scotland, the rugby union team, and just carry that thing, just run through them, just bump them out. You're allowed to hit them, just hit them out the way. But it didn't really work like that, didn't it? And I think a lot of folk follow Rangers the same kind of way. They turn up and it's just everything should work straight away, and they haven't watched a podcast. Hell mend them. They haven't watched a podcast. They haven't watched an interview in Rangers TV or anything like that with the new head coach, with any kind of journalist, anybody saying. It's obviously going to take a while for all these new players and all these new tactics, this new mindset. He's not even a manager, he's a head coach. It takes a while for us to get used to that kind of stuff. That's going to take a while to bed in, but no. It's like, why are we not winning? Why do we keep passing the ball the wrong way? You see the way the fullbacks aren't even crossing the halfway line. There's obviously something new going on here, even if you didn't know that. It doesn't matter what happens, doesn't matter who we get in, doesn't matter if it's the same owners, doesn't matter if it's the same board, doesn't matter if it's even the same manager. You get a whole lot of new players. It's going to take a while. There will be wee bits of rustiness. So for us to be 0-0 at half time tonight and having done well to get to half time at 0-0, phenomenal saves from my new hero Jack Butland, a couple of last ditch tackles, at least one from John Souttar, a lot of misplaced passes, a lot of getting caught in the ball. And I was basically thinking, if Panathinaikos had just, had concentrated on actually completing their shots on target instead of being more interested in trying to get a red card for one of the Rangers players or trying to win a penalty or something like that, they would have been 2 or 3-0 up. So I was quite happy that it was 0-0 at half time. It was as expected. That's what I was expecting. That's the very little research that I've put into Rangers over the course of the last 3 drunken weeks on holiday have led me to believe was going to happen tonight. And then the second half, it just all went wrong. It just all went really, really wrong, and we're far too ahead of schedule. And suddenly I'm thinking about Rangers against Dundee United at the early part of August 1986, the early part as soon as he's ran his first full season in charge, 86-87 season. Remember that? Remember when Souness actually took over? It was kind of in instalments. Walter Smith, it was his assistant, and he came in first, but we had a game where we just sacked Jock Wallace and we went to Kobawe, was it? And I remember it was the first time I ever saw Graham Souness listed officially as the Rangers manager. It was this game at Kobawe against Clydebank, and they beat us. And then we had a game against St Mirren at Love Street, and Walter was in. He was in the bench as a kind of caretaker manager, if you like, ahead of Souness completing his time at Sampdoria as a player. And we get beat 2-1 that day as well, was it that one? And then, I don't know if we had any other league games, but certainly the last league game of the season was at home against Motherwell. We had to beat them. I think we had to beat them by 2 clear goals as well to qualify, to assure ourselves of qualifying for Europe and into the UEFA Cup. And we did just that. We beat them 2-0, and Souness and Walter were out in the park before the game, getting welcomed by the crowd. But the week after that, Celtic won the league that day at Love Street in dramatic style. And the following week they came to Ibrox in the Glasgow Cup final, which wasn't a kids' event in their days. It was also like Peter Latchford was in goals for Celtic that night. I'll always remember that. But it was Ali McCoy scored the hat trick. We beat them 3-2. The place was full. There was like 45,000 there, and it could only hold 45,000 back then. And the Celtic end was full. The Brimland Road stand was full of Celtic fans trying to gloat about winning the league. And then we beat them, and it was an early marker, an early indicator of what was going to go on. And the start of the following season, his first full season in charge, as soon as it's playing this time, of course, we lose at Easter Road. He gets sent off for putting a 4-inch gash in George McCluskey's shin. You ever heard George McCluskey talking about John Gregg? That's respect, by the way. That changed my mind about George McCluskey. Absolute gentleman. We heard our manager, our new head coach, I've done it again, I'm going to do it all season, talking about John Gregg, Mr. Gregg, during the week. Well, George McCluskey also calls him Mr. Gregg. Absolutely phenomenal. So that was soon as he started the season. He gets sent off. We got beat 1-0. It's a disaster, and you knew it wasn't. Even then, you knew it wasn't going to be. It was just sometimes what has to happen. It can happen early in the season. You get a chance to make up for it. I think we beat Falkirk. Was it 1-0? Maybe even a penalty, a midweek game. I wasn't at it for some reason. Wasn't at that one. I was at Easter Road. And then I'm just like 17 at the time, and we played Dundee United. It was a Sunday game. Was it a Sunday game? No, a Saturday game. Saturday game still in 8 days. Saturday games. And I was up the back of the Brimlin. And we were 2-0 up at half time, and the place is going crazy. It's absolutely mobbed. I remember seeing there's folk up lampposts and that in Edmiston Drive trying to see in. It was proper, blue fever that day, and we're 2-0 up, absolutely cruising, looking fantastic. The second half, Dundee United scored 3 times, and I remember Ian Redford, I could hear him screaming we let it go by Rangers, or so did Dundee United, and he's rattled the winner into the Brimlin Road net, and he's like screaming at us, "Yeah, get it, Rangers, for letting me go." I've always liked when Rangers players, ex-Rangers players, do that. I don't like this no celebrating thing. I want guys who are professionals and want to win. To have played for our club. But anyway, that's what I suddenly feel like now. I feel that we're in that kind of situation over the course of, a whole tie, over the course of one tie. Maybe Russell Martin should have said it was going to be a season-defining night tonight. Or was he asked if it was going to be a season-defining tie in yesterday's pre-match presser? I don't know. But maybe he should have said aye, because if this is the way the season's going to go, if this is defining the way this current season's going to go, this game tonight on its own, absolutely fantastic. I'll take that. It's going to be great fun. But for the tie as a whole, I'm now thinking there'll be less patience. I was expecting us, when this draw was made, even though last season's Rangers, Barry Ferguson's Rangers, Philip Clement's Rangers, I would have been very, very confident in us disposing of this Panathinaikos side just now. Panathinaikos are a massive club. They're not quite as big as ourselves, but they're getting there. They've got that name, they've got that reputation. They've only played in one European final, but it was the European Cup final. They played it at Wembley, and in that bracket now, along with ourselves, of clubs that have either, skirted around the final of the European Cup or the Champions League in their history, maybe made it to semi-finals like ourselves, or lost the final like Roma, like Panathinaikos, like Atletico Madrid. Christ, but it's you've even got Manchester United's final, clubs who have won the European Cup or the Champions League but are getting further and further away, have kind of been lucky to qualify for the Champions League over recent years, and Manchester United kind of segueing with Manchester City, for example, as Manchester's representative in the Champions League, and they need something like to get to European club finals. Man United getting laughed at the place for even reaching the Europa League final last season, that kind of thing. But it's, Panathinaikos are very much in that bracket as well, but they went out of an earlier round of a lesser European competition last season than we did under Clement/Barry, and I would be expecting us to dispose of them fairly easily this season. But they've got a bit more continuity. They've kept the same manager after going out the last last 16 of the Conference League to Fiorentina. But we've just new owners, new board, new everything. New management, new players. I thought, no, we're going to go out. I think we're going to lose this tie, but as long as we lose it by the odd goal, I'll be quite happy. Like the tie, and I'm thinking maybe draw one each tonight and lose 2-1 next week or something like that, and that would be fine by me. I was quite ready to. You want to do as well as you can. The Champions League, we need the Champions League money, but I think actually playing the Champions League group stage itself would be massively confusing to the progress of this team. But at the same time, you can't. For the club in general, we should be aiming for that all the time. But I thought, no, I can see us going out this tie, and I'm quite happy to accept that as long as it's by the odd goal, and that would let us know that we're heading in the right direction. But now that would mean we're going to lose 3-0 next week and throw away a 2-goal lead. So it's something we have to be wary of. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves tonight. I don't think anybody will, but it was lovely. It was really nice to see this tonight, for the whole place to eventually be buzzing by the end of the game. Give the players a lovely round of applause going off the park, and we've won 2-0. We've got our first ever win against Panathinaikos, and it's how you doing, folks? This is your Fatec immediate post Rangers. Have from 49 weeks ago tonight, our first home European tie last season. We lost that 2-0. We've won this one 2-0. That was a bad night personally for Hefty as well. 49 weeks ago tonight it must be. It was the second leg of maybe it's 48 weeks ago. It was the second leg, 48 weeks probably, of the next round of the Champions League qualifiers when we lost at home to Dynamo Kiev, but we weren't even really at home, were we? It was happening. I'm not saying that as an excuse, because Dynamo Kiev weren't at home when they played their leg. They were in Lublin, as all Ukrainian teams continue to be, having to play away from home. Their home ties not in Ukraine. So it wasn't. I don't mean it that way. It was just as bad for Dynamo Kiev. They won fair and square. I mean, eventually they nearly finished bottom of the Europa League group as we cruised through straight into the last 16, missing out the round of 32 for the second season running under Philip Clement in the Europa League, despite the massive increase in the size of the group stage that we competed in. But it was fair and square, but we weren't even at home. We weren't even playing at our own stadium. Now this season we haven't played as many. We've only played one home pre-season friendly because of the pitch. Because the pitch, just like the players, is taking a wee bit of time to bed in. But I think it's more symbolic that we're not looking at the fact that there's a stand that hasn't been completed, that hasn't been finished properly, so we can't even play at our home stadium. We had to play at Hampden last year for 4 games, just 4 competitive home games at Hampden. This season we're playing at home. That in itself is lovely. We're playing at Ibrox. We're going to play all our home European games at Ibrox this season. Everything going well, everything politically going according to plan. But I think it's really symbolic in a way that's. I don't mean this in a bad way. I mean, it was embarrassing, a wee bit embarrassing, and it's certainly awkward and a bit weird to be playing our home games at Hampden for 4 games last season. But the work on the Copeland Road that wasn't completed in time had to be done. It had to be done, and getting that work finished, to allow our wheelchair supporters to have the facilities that they deserve. It was a massive. It was not a feather in the cap for the club. It was more a case of ending the ongoing shame of our wheelchair supporters being consigned to the elements. At the side of the park, on the track side, and that was lovely, and it was worth it. I didn't mind that awkwardness. I didn't mind that kind of inconvenience of having to go to Hampden, because this was something that had to be done, and it was done untidily and clunkily and all that. But nobody else was doing it, and I'm really proud of that board. I'm really proud of that board getting stuff sorted out. But this season, it's like all the work they've done is now hopefully starting to bear fruit. It could have been a better set up. We're at our home ground. We're at Ibrox. The wheelchair supporters are in the facilities they should be in. We've got just about every season ticket possible sold. We've got money-laden, semi-trustworthy, as trustworthy as you can possibly get in the world of multi-club ownership models. Semi-trustworthy owners who have got plenty of money and a proven track record, really, with sports franchises, be they NFL or EFL and soon to be EPL. And we've got a manager who is a kind of off-the-shelf, modern football head coach. I'm going to keep calling him a manager. I'm going to do it all season, and I'll probably have to pay a fine to a charity every time I say it to make it worthwhile. And it just felt like everything suddenly. Nothing's proven tonight, of course. We haven't even proved that we got past Panathinaikos. But it was just a lovely moment. Everything feels. We've got a wee taste. We've got a taste of what it's like, what it could be like, and everything seems to be moving in the right direction. Reaction Pod coming to you in association with Jersnet. Check out Jersnet every Friday, 9 p.m. live on the Jersnet YouTube channel. Every Sunday, 9:30 p.m. live on the Jersnet YouTube channel. And I think Jersnet is back this weekend. I don't know who it is, but I think it's starting back this weekend, or maybe it's next weekend. With the season starting again. So check that out. I'm sponsored by Jersnet, as always, and I'm also sponsored by McDoggin. And McDoggin's a new community perversion that I invented. I'm not just, I know I'm away on holiday, and I'm sitting drinking and watching television and stuff like that, and I'm chasing fish suppers along the A170, but I'm also getting creative. I'm still just putting in the effort for you folks. And if, like me, you're struggling with your weight, I'm not struggling. I hate that term, struggling with your weight. I'm not struggling with my weight at all. When I eat and drink, I get fat. And when I have fruit and do a bit of exercise, I get a bit thinner. So my weight's absolutely perfect. My weight's working absolutely fine. It's I'm struggling with keeping fatty food and fatty drinks out my gob. But if you're like that and you're thinking about ways that you could probably avoid that, you could some sort of method of getting yourself off the grub but still kind of getting that high. I'm thinking we could do McDoggin. It's all McDonald's drive-thrus now, isn't it? Well, it's better for the ones in town centres, I suppose, on the drive-thrus. But go to a McDonald's drive-thru, get into the car park. Don't take the first. I'd say leave the first 6 to 10 bays empty, really, but you get your big, probably a 4x4 if you're into the McDoggin that you've got, and you go and park in like bays 11 to 30, however big that car park is. I would say maybe get one of the wee paper kind of sheaths off the straws, the McDonald's paper, and tie that round the door handle if you're into this, if it's something you want to do, if you're into a bit of McDoggin. And it lets you and your partner, two kind of heterosexual males, two heterosexual females, not females, one of each. It would need to be for heterosexual. Non-binary, and non-binary in this case is folk who don't have the chips and the coke, who just go with the sandwich. Perverts, sick in the head, they folk. I just don't believe in it at all. It's against God's law, to not have the chips and the coke with the sandwich. But whatever you're into, anyway, you agree you're going to do a bit of McDoggin, you get yourselves in the front seat, the driver's seat, and the passenger seat, and you go along to that car park, and you tie a wee straw thing to the back of the motor. I mean, somebody else like myself can come along and just, slip into the back of your motor and just sit there and listen and watch. Well, you're biting into your quarter pounder, or you're biting into your big nutty chicken things you get in the snack box, they call it. Oh my God, is that a barbecue dip you've got there? You dirty, oh God, yeah. That's the kind of thing, like I say, I apologise for the state of my face there. I mean, it's making the kind of faces. It doesn't get any easier to watch these pods. But I'm sponsored by McDoggin, and my name is Alec Anderson. I've got to have that house music all night long with house music. You can't go wrong. Give me that house music to set me free. Lost in house music is where I wanna be. Rock your body, move your body, move your body, move your body, rock your body, rock your body, rock your body. I quite enjoyed that game tonight. I quite enjoyed how that turned out. In the end, the Rangers players were rocking their body. They were moving their body. They've been rocking their body all summer. We've seen a lot of footage. An old backwards antediluvian Rangers granda like myself is watching all the Rangers TV's pitting out, and I'm like, why are they letting our opponents know what we're training? Don't show the opponents the training regime. Keep it a secret. What's the point of doing everything behind closed doors and then filming it and showing it to our enemies? They can see what we're trying to do. That's what you do these days, isn't it? That's what you do. You set out your stall. You tell folk how you're going to play. You tell folk your tactical blueprint, and it's all about they're doing plan A. Plan B is doing plan A better, and all that kind of stuff. But we've seen a lot how much the players are putting in to this pre-season, how much it's going to be draining them, I would expect, and wasn't expecting to see that level of performance that we got in the second half tonight. I am talking to you from outside the house where the music was happening again tonight, where Rangers have beaten Panathinaikos by 2-0 in the first leg of this 2025-2026 UEFA Champions League second round qualifying tie. Young Curtis Findlay is obviously sick of myself constantly calling him Findlay Cameron after this Curtis Conway Findlay. I just can't get his name right, and that's why he scored that goal tonight. That's why he scored that goal, because he knows I can't get his name right. I'm either confusing him with a great guy from Northern Ireland who's an absolute legend of the Fat Egg pod, or I'm getting his name the wrong way around. Even when I get the names right, there's no Cameron involved there. It's Curtis and Findlay. I get them the wrong way around. So that's why he's just starting to score. Every time I turn up at Ibrox, he's scoring now, because I didn't see the closed doors games against Dunfermline or against Hamilton Accies. I've only seen us playing against Bruges in this game tonight, and Findlay Curtis has scored in the two of them. He's like, you will remember my bloody name. In fact, what I'll do is I'll just make that goal. I'll wear number 52, so I'll make the goal in the 52nd minute, so you've got even less excuse to forget my name or get my name wrong, you big Rangers granda. That's why I'm a Rangers granda. He became the first British Rangers player ever to score against Panathinaikos, one of the greats of European football. One of the great clubs of European football, and that's our fifth attempt. The first time we've beaten them over 90 minutes, as I say. There's 5 games, and it's the first time we've had a British player. So we had Emerson, Middlesbrough fame. He scores, Brazilian scoring for Rangers against Panathinaikos, and then we had Michael Moles scoring against them, and we had Nacho Novo equalising against them late on to beat them on away goals in 2007-2008. So Findlay Curtis and Djeidi Gassama have joined that list now. There's a lot of Rangers players who have been signed this summer who have got D's and J's and N's in their name, and I am old and I am drunk and I am weary. So forgive me if I get all the names wrong as well every now and then, but you're going to know roughly what I'm talking about. It was a great night tonight at Ibrox. It was a lot better than we were expecting it to be, and if the manager, head coach, is telling us it's going to take a while for the players to take on board everything he's trying to teach them, and everybody that's ever seen a Russell Martin team being fielded before, if they support MK Dons, if they support Southampton, if they support Swansea, they're telling us it'll take a while for his style to bed in. Well, if it's at that rate of improvement, because the difference between the first half and the second half, we saw the difference in the Bruges friendly here at Ibrox. where we're 2-0 down at half time, 2-0 going on, 4-0 down. But he completely changed the team, as managers and head coaches are wont to do in pre-season friendlies. He completely changed the team at half time. So it was a different Rangers team altogether, and a different Bruce team in that second half, which Rangers, they won that second half by 2-0, so the game ends up a draw. There was no changes at half time tonight, so the players have taken on board what happened. I think tonight, Joe Rothwell, who has got that kind of name, it's like it's too harsh for him to be a kind of Broadway musical star, Joe Rothwell, but it's too wet for him to be a kind of hard case movie star, like Joe Pesci or whatever. There's something about his name, Joe Rothwell. He's reminding me of something. Is it writers? Philip Roth or something. It's a kind of combination of different. Some sort of non-football people that he's reminded me of with that name, Joe Rothwell, but it's the first time I've seen him playing, and he seemed to be the guy tonight who was most in tune with what Russell Martin wants this Rangers team to do. He seemed to be operating best in the Russell Martin blueprint. He seemed to understand it, and he did talk about it well when he signed. He wanted to play for Russell Martin because he liked Russell Martin's style. I think tonight, Big John Souttar, the man, he was never going, that's terrible, he's playing for Scotland. Why is he playing for Scotland? Because he wants to bloody represent Rangers, playing for Scotland, and he scored his second goal for Scotland, and another Rangers player scoring for Scotland is always a great thing to see, even if it is in a 3-1 defeat to Iceland. And there was all this kind of hullabaloo about, he's not going to be back in time for that crucial European game against Panathinaikos. He was back and then some. He seemed to be the guy tonight most in tune with how it could go wrong. He seemed to get it most understood how there was too many instructions for these Rangers players to have bad moments in this game. Too much, there's too many instructions, too much conditioning, too much change of tactics, too many new players in this team for us not to have really dodgy moments. And he was involved in probably a few, creating a few of those dodgy moments himself, but he's also seemed most ready to correct that, most aware of that possibility. I think he played a really crucial role tonight, John Souttar, and I think Findlay Curtis got man of the match from the sponsors quite rightly for starting, turning it into a victory, because we're still kind of against the run of play at the start of the second half. We've only played much better at the start of the second half. We had that one moment of magic, and I think Diamandi comes on to a game, Nico Raskin started looking fantastic, and of course Gassama comes on and just blows the joint away. I think the players up front, and I'm going to include Kieran Dow, I can't believe was playing. There's always somebody who kind of fits into the plan you don't expect. You always thought was going to be first one out the door. It kind of stays on a bit longer when there's a new regime in charge, isn't there? Kind of Stuart Monroe, Cammy Fraser type scenario. Everything for me is 86, 87. That's everything for me. That's how I judge these things, through that filter. But I wasn't expecting that, but him and Findlay Curtis and even Danilo up front, who apparently had his first great pre-season in a couple of years, they'll just give us the ball and we'll do what we've got to do. They're just enthusiastic players, they're obviously really tactically aware. But particularly Dow, quite a kind of cerebral type of player, but they're just, once the game starts to go for Rangers, then they start getting spectacular. They're given the space to operate, but I think getting us operating, getting us to that stage where we could score goals, because in the first half we're struggling to get our own half, really. We'd barely a couple of shots on goals in the first half. I think it's Joe Rothwell and John Souttar who've really got that shit going tonight. The team, the starting 11 tonight, quite a strange one, even as little as we know about Russell Martin's teams. The only second time a Russell Martin team has played in front of a crowd. I forgot to mention Barnsley when I was talking about the closed doors games there. Even then, it was still a surprise. We had Jack Butland in goals, which is still a kind of a surprise, considering his form towards the end of last season, or for most of last season. Tav, the captain, is back as captain, a European hero for Rangers, back in a massive European tie, and I was delighted to see him. Still gets a really hard time from a lot of the supporters, but when yet another head coach / manager is wanting to have him in there and as captain at the start of such a crucial period for Russell Martin, a crucial period in his time at Rangers, he's got to get us off. He's got to get a bit of momentum going, a bit of faith from the crowd, even though we're obviously going to be struggling. He's to put together his blueprint, as I say, to put Tav in there, again, just shows the faith that every manager he's played under has got in Tav. Not the narrative that's been put about by some fans that it's because Tav has been there so long that we've had so many managers. I don't think so. somebody like Michael Beale was not slow in looking after himself, looking after number one. If he thought there would be more gain to be had from getting rid of James Tavernier than problems, he would certainly have done that straight away. So Tav, my captain, in there tonight. But we thought we were going to see Tav maybe at centre half this season. But we've got centre halves aplenty already. We thought we were going to see Tav in midfield perhaps, but we've got midfielders aplenty already signed by Russell Martin. So in existing midfielders that we haven't sold yet, you might say. But Tav's in there. He's in there at right back, which means Max Aarons goes to left back, which is bad news for Hefty. The man sent off against Dynamo Kiev at Hampden last season, and it's a bit of a comment as well. A lot of folk next to me that talking about why we done that thing already of playing a right back at left back. But Max Aarons, he's wearing the number 3, so that'll teach him. So no Radvan Yilmaz, who got injured against Dynamo Kiev at Hampden last season, their first European home game of the season. Again, saying a lot about Yilmaz and Hefty as it did last season. It's Max Aarons in there at left back, and we've got Big John Souttar in at centre half alongside Nesson Jim. I knew it. All through the game I was going, repeat his name to yourself, Alec. Repeat his name to yourself, because you're going to forget it in your post-match reaction. And the fella was absolutely brilliant as well. Nasser Burkina Faso. I just don't know the guy's name. The guy that played for Red Star Belgrade, and he was great. Although he had bad moments as well. Let's go into just complete the team, Alec, and then talk about the game. The midfield 3, it was Joe Rothwell as a sitting mid, and to the left of him was Nico Raskin. To the right of him was Mohamed Diamande, and up front we had Danilo. To his left it was Findlay Curtis, and to the right hand side it was Kieran Dow. Findlay Curtis, that's speaking about Oscar Cortez. Oscar Cortez is on the bench tonight, but when a young player like that is a guy with almost zero, he's building up the first team experience, certainly Findlay Curtis at a fair rate of knots. And hopefully he's a legend in the making, but it still says a lot about Oscar Cortez, who's had a pre-season and is starting to get back to fitness, but maybe just not there yet. And I think tonight's lineup to me would indicate a manager sticking by his promise that players doing well in training and taking everyone on board is... I'm sorry, the guy just keeps following me. He's definitely following me now. The wee sweepy guy. Waste management, that's maybe what the manager was saying. If anybody's not putting in everything they're supposed to put in energy-wise in pre-season, in training, if they're not showing the fitness, if they're not showing the alertness, if they're not showing the effort, then they won't go in there. I'm not saying that's the case with Oscar Cortez, for example, or any of our other fullbacks, whatever, but I think even in those short clips you're seeing on Rangers TV, what's the short clips? Like 18 minutes long, some of them. There's one coming out every day from St George's Park down in Burton there. You were seeing that James Tavernier is still the best at training. He's leading the way at training as much as anything else. He's an absolute animal, is an absolute machine. That's two opposites, Alec, but it amounts to the same thing. James Tavernier just won't be stopped. 10 years at the club, and it was great to see him playing. But other players, if they maybe don't have the fitness yet, or they're having trouble taking on the instructions, a lot of guys, they say, still kind of struggling with English probably at Rangers, then they're not going to get in the team tonight. But it was a fairly surprising lineup. I think you'd expect to see a few. You wouldn't have named that lineup, I think, when you're predicting Russell Martin's first Rangers 11 in a competitive match tonight. And the main guy to thank, I think, tonight, certainly in the first half, was the goalkeeper. I'm talking about John Souttar being in there and taking care of a few problems that occurred, a few short passes, a few interceptions. For Panathinaikos deep in our half, and John Souttar was in there tidying up. He had one moment, John Souttar, where I thought he was going to make the tackle. He's probably thought to himself, if I lunge in here, it's going to look more like a red card, even though the guy was still miles from goal. It was running about the halfway line, but we're going to get broken on. I don't know if he was the guy that put the pass in or whatever that led to us being intercepted like that, but he decided to just grab the guy by the waist and throw him to the ground like a kind of... It's just a yellow card, ref. I'm going to have to take some sort of card, so let's just make sure you know it's a yellow card. It was a kind of a really kind of dainty rugby tackle, if you like. So he takes a yellow card for that, John Souttar. That was the kind of thing he was doing through the first half, as well as I'm sure it's at least one of the last ditch interceptions, throwing themselves into tackles, point blank shots on goal from the Panathinaikos players, just taken out at the last minute, snuffed out at the last minute by Rangers players' groins and thighs and things like that as we threw ourselves maniacally at the ball. At a time where it'd be really easy to go first competitive game under a new management structure, this is all going to pot. They kept going. There was a ferocity about the defending, even though I think the fact that we created a lot of our own problems with the defending, and a lot of it came from the fact that we're obviously passing the ball about as much as we can, building up possession at the back. I think that creates a confusion. You think, well, we're poor at the back tonight. We were, but I think we showed signs that we've not had since Steven Gerrard, who never lost a game by more than 2 goals. I think he only lost about 3 games by 2 goals. We're maybe going a bit more defensively secure, because if this is us, in the kind of embryonic stage of Russell Martin's head coachment, it augurs well for how we're going to defend when things are flowing nicely. Nasser Djeidi. I'm scared to get these names wrong. That's down to me, folks. Apologies for that. Too much drinking, too much Sam Miguel. But the main kind of defensive, the most spectacular defensive contributions tonight came from the man I slagged rotten last season, or by my standards of slagging rotten. I don't like to slag Rangers players at all if I can possibly help it, but I've never really liked Jack Butland. And by the end of the season I was feeling sorry for him, but tonight, if it hadn't been for him, we'd certainly be 2-0 down before the time that we'd got it would have been 2 each, would have been the most we'd have got out of that game tonight. A great save. Was it, I don't know, quarter of an hour into the game, really early in the first half anyway, point blank right in front of me, a fantastic stop. And another one at the start of the second half as well, a fantastic point blank save. But the one in the first half was phenomenal. He did great tonight, Jack Butland. We have him to thank, and another couple of decent stops as well. The problem seemed to be coming from the new way we're playing with fullbacks, and I'll have this wrong, by the way. I've not had a chance to say I am genuinely kind of struggling for health and what have you just now, just like hungover basically. That kind of, it's a really slow, not folk talk about long COVID. I've got long hungover. It's been drinking for like 7 days, so just like 4 or 5 cans a night. But it just brain has ground to a halt. So I'm not my sharpest. I'm going to go and watch the game back and give you a wee pod later on, folks, properly analysing everything that went on tonight. But from what I could see tonight, it looked like we're doing a thing with the fullbacks. They're not advancing. Tav and Max Aarons were not belting over the halfway line willy-nilly the way our fullbacks have done for, it seems like, the last 10 years. Just get the fullbacks high has been the thing. The overload has started with that since Tav's been at the club, and Tav did say in his contribution to the pre-match presser yesterday that no, but we're playing a very different way under the new manager, and I saw that tonight. And that was, I think, the folk that haven't been listening, haven't been understanding that there's going to be a change in style, and didn't watch that presser, for example, from Tav. They were the folk that were getting uptight about it tonight. I think the crowd in general were really, really good tonight. I think we're really good. But Aarons and Tav were kind of coming and taking the ball short from the centre half at the other. Souttar's giving the ball to Aarons on the left hand side, and Nasser Djeidi's giving the ball to Tav on the right hand side. But more Aarons, I thought, and he's having to take the ball. He's got it with his back. He's back to the opposition goal, but he's so deep in his own half that it's a dangerous thing. That might not be what the problem stemmed from tonight. I might be imagining that, but it was definitely, they seemed to be crossing over at one point as well, almost kind of like we're forming a kind of defensive diamond. Like the fullbacks were coming across to almost go in front of the centre halves, and Joe Rothwell is sitting deep. I think it was normally a 4-3-3, but to describe that as a 4-3-3 tonight is a bit like saying that the Large Hadron Collider is, it's like the Glasgow subway just gone a bit faster and a bit smaller. There's more to it than that, and Rothwell was sitting deeper but pushing further forward than you would expect maybe Conor Barron to have done. And you've got Rask in this new role where he's more advanced to the left-hand side. So it's more like a 4-1-2-3. Is that 4-1-5-2-3? That's fine. Like a 4-1-2-3 of sorts. And Danilo, I don't know if I wasn't getting to watch him a lot, what he was actually supposed to be doing, because we had so little of the ball in the opposition half. In the second half, we certainly weren't getting very far. It was all Panathinaikos, as I say. If they'd spent less time trying to dive or trying to get players sent off, well, they wouldn't have taken the booking. The guy goes doing the first booking. Was it the number 2? He goes into the box and he's diving, looking for a penalty. Lithuanian ref gives him a booking. Again, these are decisions I'll need to review myself personally. Oh, you're so excited! I need to find out what's Alex's opinion. No, never mind VAR. I'll have a look at them and see how dodgy they actually were when I get back and watch it on. Was it on Premier Sports tonight? I was recording it anyway, but he picks up a booking, I think, in the first half, or try to win a penalty, and it felt as if Panathinaikos, that was the only thing that was letting them down. a few times more concentrating on getting Rangers players booked or sent off or winning penalties when they should have been concentrating on finishing. That maybe let us off a bit, but also I say there's a real strange thing going on where defence was getting itself into trouble, then showing an absolute determination, an almost psychotic determination, and a really energetic determination considering what point they're at. They're still kind of mid pre-season, if you like, or late pre-season. Players they can usually be pretty exhausted at this point in the season, but they got there. They get to the ball. They snuffed out a lot of chances for Panathinaikos, and they hung in there. I think the only Nico Raskin went through in goal about quarter an hour into the game and completely blasted it miles away. Totally sclaffed his shot from the edge of the box, and then I think it's about 37-38 minutes. Diamandi brings a great save out for their keeper. Can I get down to his post, get into the left-hand post as I'm looking at it, his right-hand side, the goalie puts it for a corner, and from the corner, who had the shot on goal? Was it a header? I can't remember, but that required another kind of spectacular camera-friendly save from the goalkeeper. But that was it, really. That was all we'd managed in the first half. A few folk booing as we went off at half-time 0-0, but it was exactly as we were expecting. Second half we come out, and I think it was still mostly Panathinaikos, and we get Findlay Curtis, the first of two instances where I'm thinking, no, don't shoot, son. And it goes. We get the ball up that left-hand side, and Findlay Curtis has run himself into the ground as he does every time he plays for Rangers. He cuts in, edge of the box. I don't know if he gets into the box. The memory plays tricks on you when it's such a great goal. And I don't know if it took a few bounces on its way in, but it's that kind of arcing, he's curling it into the far corner. And I'm expecting the keeper to kind of get to it, but I'm thinking, as it's getting closer to goal, you're thinking that's a bit tastier. It's a bit tastier than I realised, and it's more accurate than it is fast, I think. And it goes round the keeper into that far corner, down the inside of the side netting. Sublime. And it was a kind of, oh my God, we've scored. I remember saying to the fellow next to me, I think that's the only way we're going to score, because we're not getting the ball into the box at all. We weren't going to get the ball into the Panathinaikos box in any way at that point in time, and so the place goes crazy. It's brilliant, a brilliant moment for Findlay Curtis, who's celebrating down in front of me, but hopefully that's because his family are up behind me. Not that I've anything against him celebrating in front of me. I think he might have been given, remember my name now, you fat git. But hopefully his family were behind me in that wee bit in the main stand. The families tend to be up there a lot of time, and that's is a great moment for him. But it's Rangers' first European goal of the season. And then about 7 minutes later, Panathinaikos player goes in. I think it's a late in a tackle, and I'm thinking, all right, that's fine. I thought it was maybe 50-50, but I was expecting the decision to go against us, I think. And next thing, it's a foul to Rangers and a red card. Oh, that must be that guy that got booked earlier on. I was in such a kind of defensive mode. Like, I'm not going to boo Rangers, I'm not going to get upset with Rangers. I'm ready for this to be a difficult night. I just hope we can minimise the damage, really, if I'm honest. That for us to be winning 1-0 and then suddenly we're playing against 10 men, it was actually quite confusing. As I was saying at the start of the pod, it's quite emotionally confusing. I was kind of pleasantly surprised. Oh, this is amazing. Just like when I found out that was it the Blue Sea, the Blue Ocean, a fish and chip shop in Helmsley, actually shut at 4 o'clock, and I got there at 4:10, despite the fact it said outside that it was shutting at 7. So I'd said, we'll go to Hutton Le Hole first, and then we'll go to Pickering, and we'll get that in the way back because it's closer to the digs. Pleasantly surprised. Sunday shut. Sunday, and so I was just like, oh my God, I knew we were playing against 10 men, and it become a much more even game then. We started to dominate slightly, and the manager, I don't know if this is what's encouraged the manager to make these substitutions or if he's going to make these substitutions anyway, but off came the front three, Danilo, Kieran Dow. Have I called him Kieran Dyer? That's another old man mistake I keep making as well. And Findlay himself, and he brings on Cyril Dessers, Igama and Jamie Gassama, and oh my God, they just get steamed in. Things starting to really loosen up front. Suddenly you had Diamandi and Raskin, I think, were getting more involved. They probably were getting more involved before those substitutions were made round about, I think, the 73rd minute that we made that trio of substitutions, just swapping the front three. But things started to loosen up, and with a few chances we'd put better balls across the face of goal, we could have scored a couple of goals. But I was just so delighted that we're winning at that point. I wasn't really going to. I was quite happy to see the rustiness up front as opposed to us being rusty at the back, which is much more dangerous. And Gassama was starting to cook with gas. That's the only. It has to be said. And you've got Igama on the other side. So you get two. And Gassama is this season's Igama. He's the guy who's a real prospect. He's originally from North Africa, although he's had more time in British football, of course, because it was at Sheffield Wednesday. But because of all the hullabaloo at Sheffield Wednesday and his transfer, he's behind in his pre-season. He's going to take a while to catch up. This was the same narrative we had with Igama last season, and it was was it September? October when we played Nice in Nice, and that's when he really exploded onto the scene. Although he'd shown plenty of promise. He showed promise when he came on the 3-0 doing. We took off Celtic at Parkhead. He comes a sub in that one, but I was feeling that Igama was going to be away by now. He's going to be away to Lille or something like that, and it's almost kind of horrible to have seen the two of them together, to see that prospect of having Igama on one side and Gassama on the other, because he would create absolute havoc. And you've got Dessers or Danilo both afoot, and Dessers needs somebody who's going to pull the ball back from the byline. That was a big thing. Dessers doing extra well to get these numbers over the last couple of seasons, because he's a guy who operates best when somebody's hitting the byline and pulls it back. He's a natural poacher, and we've just haven't played that way during Dessers' time at Rangers. So it'd be phenomenal to see the goals they would score in the league, at least the three, that kind of combination. But it now looks like Igaman's going to be away, but I'm expecting Gassama, he's going to be that same thing. It's going to take him a while to settle in. Plenty of promise there. He's a young guy, but we'll see the best of him come November, December. But he wasn't bothered with that tonight. He was fantastic on that left-hand side, and I think, was Igaman involved in the move? It all happened so quickly. So it's just trying to digest how well Rangers were playing. And we just moved the ball from deep in our own half towards the running box, just right up the I think went up the right hand side, and the ball goes in. Gassama takes it, and he just has a goal from it. And I think he feints to go to the goalkeeper's right in the top corner, and he goes to the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper wearing number 69. He goes to the bottom left. Soissons Nuftard. He's rooted to the spot, the goalie, because Gassama's just put his momentum to the wrong side, and he can't get it back as the ball goes kind of through him almost, or past him into the bottom left hand corner, or just kind of bounces into the net, in the middle of the net, and it's just, the place went nuts. It was great. It was lovely. It was a lovely moment. And suddenly we're winning this tie 2-0, and we go from, let's just get through this. Let's just get through this tie. Show plenty of patience. I'm always great at showing patience with Rangers when they're poor, but see when we're great, see when we're doing really well, I get totally impatient. Probably the hardest thing in my life as a Rangers supporter is not that we haven't won the European Cup or the Champions League. No, we'll get there one day. The kind of geopolitical, social, economic kind of board is always changing. It's always changing. We'll get there one day. But for me, it's no winning 10 in a row. When we won 9. And not to get to 10, that was a killer. Even though 9 in a row is probably the happiest domestic thing ever for me in my entire life. But it's once we're going, that the number of times we've had Celtic, we've beaten them 4-0, they're 5-1. Why can we not get 7? Why can we not get 7? And if we'd beaten them 7-1, I know we beat them 8 during the war, but I would want to go into 8. I'd be frustrated if we didn't get to 8 and beat their record for the 1957 League Cup final. So tonight, having been quite happy that we're doing the tunnel 0-0 at half time and playing a bit poorly and all that, but we'd got away with it, trying to calm everybody. It'll be fine. When we're 2-0 up against 10 men, we could kill the tie here. We could kill the tie and guarantee ourselves group stage football this year. I got a bit impatient that way. I'm talking too much again, folks. But that was it. The game kind of played out. We didn't score any more goals. We won 2-0, and it's just lovely, pretty much perfect. All things considered, a perfect result for the first leg. I think that'll affect the crowd. I imagine there'll be fewer Panathinaikos fans going to the game next week, which is in the Olympic Stadium. I can't see the Greeks being too strict when it comes to selling tickets. I don't want to encourage crowd trouble or anything like that. I don't know. You guys probably notice it. I've been away on holiday. I've not been paying attention. I'm not going to go to Greece next week. Maybe I'll encourage a few more folk to go, but you can imagine Rangers taking a massive support over there. And they might need it. It's still going to be a really, really tough night. And as I say, Dundee United 86-87, I'm seeing the course of that game perhaps playing out again over the course of 2 legs, where a team who is, embryonic, formative stages, might have been too good, too quick, and go backwards a bit. Kind of elastic band thing, or Newton's third law of motion. Every action requires an equal and opposite reaction. Maybe as well as we played tonight, we're going to play as poorly next week, but I don't know. And it was just nice to see it. I'm looking forward to podcasts from people who know what they're talking about. I'm going to watch Rangers Review and Heart and Hand and Jersey Night at the weekend to find folk who know a bit more about tactics, to get their take on the way Russell Martin was playing tonight, because it definitely was different. I think we're going to get a ticker. We're going to get some sort of ticker, a bell, maybe to be wrong every 100 passes. He did that thing at Sheffield Wednesday. Again, Sheffield Wednesday, I think it was his first league game in charge of Southampton. They went to Hillsborough and they had got like 500 odd passes before half time, and it ended up, it was 900 odd passes completed. They had that, it was 900 odd passes completed by the end of the game, which they only won by 2 goals to 1. And I think it was the 55 pass goal that he scored, that his MK Don side scored against Gillingham in a game that they lost at Priestfield. But you think with Rangers was able to get players, I say, proportionally the money that he's got here, the resources he's got compared to the rest of the teams, other than one in the league here in Scotland, in the domestic setup here. You think there's got to be moments where he's set up, where you can see how we're set up for trying to keep the ball, and let the front players go crazy, let them be as kind of inspired as they want to be in the box in those key moments. Take the gamble, take the risk, try and do something different. And he's building those kind of players. He's building that kind of squad where we've got those kind of explosive players up front. But the main thing is going to be to keep the ball and keep possession and complete a lot of passes in very safe areas. I think we should have some sort of, when we get to the 1,000 pass, we're going to complete 1,000 passes in a game this season, I think, under Russell Martin. So I don't know how to do it. I don't know if we're going to have a big ticker up on the screens that just keeps counting up all the passes we've completed in a game, or maybe a buzzer goes off every time it's 100 passes are completed. We can keep a tally of that. It'll be a double buzz when we hit 1,000 passes. It's going to happen at some point this season. We are going to be keeping the ball, and if we can eventually do stuff with it that we did tonight, we'll be absolutely fine. As I say, folks, the reason I come up with the dogging, the McDogging, the variation on the dogging as a national, kind of communal perversion pastime. It was, I couldn't get those fish suppers. The guy, the Helmsley fish and chip shop lied to me basically. And I've been driving about, trying on the wife wanting to go a wee trip here, a wee trip there. So it's basically, it took me like 4 hours to drive down there, and then I've got to spend each day driving about for an hour or so on wee back roads and that I've never been on before. And that's fine. That's what she wants to do. So we're doing these wee tours. And for some reason we went to Richmond, which is in the Dales, Swaledale, one of the many Richmonds in the country. But there's one there in the Swale, and it's a wee market town, it's very, very, very quaint, very, very nice. And for a stupid reason, we went, by the time we got there, we got a sandwich or something like that, and a Costa or something. All these local, kind of privately run, cafes, and we go into a Costa. I can't remember why, but in we go, and it was like I came out of there and straight away saw a fish and chip shop. So a great place, Richmond, lovely castle and all that kind of stuff, really quaint, but absolutely mobbed with tourists. So there's a big fish and chip shop. Looked like decent fish and chips as well. But can he justify it now? Can he justify it? Because just had something to eat, and then by the time it's going to take us like 40 odd minutes to get back along, can he do it? So, but it alerted me to the fact that I fancy a fish supper. I really fancy a fish supper on top of it. And I don't know what you're like, and when you're my weight, when you're my kind of size, if you look after yourself fitness-wise, when you go on holiday, you're just like straight into the beers, heavy duty, straight into the grub and all that. Or maybe you're somebody who goes on adventure holidays and fitness holidays. You go hiking and stuff like that. You just keep your fitness going the same way. You don't really believe in indulging, whatever. But me, I'm in that strange situation where I go into a holiday morbidly obese, and I think to myself, if I drink every day in this holiday and I eat fast food and all that every day during this holiday, I will be dead by the end of it. I can't afford to put on any more weight. So what happens is I usually spend the first 2 or 3 days I'll have a few beers, so I'm not being anti-social. My missus is going to have a glass of wine and all that. She's like a normal size. She's got a glass of wine, wants to chill out. So I'm like, it's like she's sitting drinking, you'll know it's murder. So I'm having a few drinks as well. And it's usually about the Wednesday or the Thursday, for a holiday that's ending the following week. Before I usually get into it far too late. I usually realise far too late. Sod it. It's about relaxing. It's about having a relaxing. You need, and I start, having like a good half dozen to 8 or 9 beers a night, or I'm then looking for something. This was towards the end of the holiday. I really started chasing down the fish supper as well. And that's like Rangers in Europe. That's what we've been doing with Europe for the past, I don't know how many seasons. Even we got to the Europa League final. It's been, Europe, I don't want to do it. It's only towards the end of the season, when we're still in the latter stages, that we realised, what the hell, go for it. I can't believe we're in the last 16 of Europe again. And last season we ended up getting to a quarter final. A few seasons before that we got all the way to the final. That's what it seems to be. We don't realise what we've got until it's too late in the season. I think we need to appreciate Europe. I love the idea of us getting at the Conference League. If we win this tie, we're guaranteed group stage football, because you would then get into the Europa League. If you lose the Europa League playoff, you go straight into... if you lose the Champions League third round qualifying tie, and we go into the Europa League playoff, to lose that, you drop into the Conference League group stage. So you'd be guaranteed, as it stands, we can still play in all three competitions and end up with not. We know European group stage football this season, but I felt as if this, it's all about Russell Martin. We've all got this false idea that we have to lose in Europe to do well domestically, especially with a new manager. And yet Steven Gerrard's built his league title success, an amazing league title success, to do it unbeaten, the most important league title in our history. He built that on European success, on doing spectacularly well to get through so many qualifying rounds early on in the season, in July into August. When we won, I know it's because we went to Manchester in 2008. It stopped us winning the treble. I think you can basically say that it actually did. It stopped us winning domestic treble. But I would never swap my memories of going to Manchester for the world to get into a European final. The first one in my that I can remember. I was 3 or 2 and a bit when we got to when we won the Cup Winners' Cup in Barcelona. So it's the first time I was there. It was great to do it again. The best night of our lives, all of us seem to agree these days, was against Red Bull Leipzig in the semi-final of the Europa League here, to get us into another European final after having been down in the fourth tier of Scottish football. It was a phenomenal night, a phenomenal moment, a phenomenal achievement. So Steven Gerrard, when he won the league, we were still in Europe. When we actually sealed the league title, we were still in Europe. We still had the tie to play against the tie to complete against Slavia Prague in the Europa League. So it doesn't go hand in hand that we need to go out of Europe to do something domestically, but I fancy us for that. I think that, like, the training wheels competition would be, the stabiliser wheels competition would be the Conference League. I know we get seriously done over by a Cypriot team all too recently, but it's been mentioned in the past couple of weeks that Paphos and one more Cypriot team finished above Panathinaikos in last season's Conference League group stage, which Panathinaikos, I think they finished 13th and had to play in the last 32, unlike ourselves. We've missed out the last 32 of European competition, 2 seasons in the trot. And I feel as if there's just a bit of magic about us in Europe just now that I don't want to let go. I don't want to let this era go. And I think there was Shamrock Rovers, there's teams from Iceland, Celje from Slovenia, a country so average at football I can't even pronounce their name. They were all in the Conference League group stage last season. Now I know it was won by the champions of the world, Chelsea. I know they won the tournament. They were so far ahead of everybody else that we could still, if the draw's kind to us, you could end up getting to another European final. If that's, obviously Chelsea won't be in the Conference League this season, but there'll be that standard of club that will be there. But I mean, Victoria Guimarães, I think they finished second in the group stage. I thought they were going to win it at one point, and it was Real Betis getting to their first ever European final. You gave them a doing on their home patch after they drew in Seville. That really signalled that Real Betis were having a special season. But there's only going to be Jagiellonia, Legia Warsaw. There was nobody in that last season other than Chelsea that would frighten us at all. Nobody we could have got past last season in that Conference League, and it'd be a really easy way for Rangers to win a European trophy, to become the first Scottish club to win 2 European competitions. It would be an amazing achievement, and I think it would also be the level of opposition would be so not lightweight, but taxing enough without being draining to the point that we can't still do something really good domestically this season, get ourselves going again in the fight to replace Celtic as top dog in Scotland. So I'm up for that. I don't mean I want to see us get beat next week. I want us to win this tie now, and it would set up a difficult tie. And so it wouldn't. It would set up a much more. That's the problem, isn't it? It's Servette or Victoria Pilsen that we would get if we get through this tie. That's bad luck to talk about that just now in the next round of the Champions League third qualifying round. But Besiktas or Shakhtar Donetsk we would get in the Europa League. But I just want to make sure win this tie and we're guaranteed group stage football in Europe this season. I think that's massive for the club. It's what we should be guaranteeing every season, especially now that the group stage is. It's loaded 6 games. You're getting 8 games, but it's involving so many different clubs that you're playing against. It's a real prestige thing as well, and you can't but learn from it. I would imagine. So we need to. I'm happy that we'll set ourselves up a good chance of making sure we do have group stage football. But I was torn about. I feel as if it's like, domestic football is almost like the diet, and the diet's going really well, but we start getting fat and we start slowing ourselves down by pigging out on European football as the season goes on. But I suppose what are we, the Kate Moss of Scottish football? Kate Moss said nothing tastes as good as skinny feels, but we are heavyweights. We're natural, as Hemingway says in his short stories, a movable feast. But his time in Paris, about being a natural heavyweight, it's really difficult not to eat, not to pig out when you are a natural heavyweight, and we are massive, we are huge, we are gargantuan, we should have European football. And I was chasing that fish supper when I realised it was time to enjoy myself, still touring about all around the North York moors and all round about North Yorkshire and going through these wee villages and that. But when I found out on Sunday, after pushing it a bit too far, taking on one village too many, I couldn't get the fish supper in Helmsley. That was it. It was past 6. It was past like kind of 4 o'clock. It was going past 5 o'clock before we were back in the digs in a wee village called Carlton, Cleveland. I couldn't handle it, and there's plenty of stuff in the fridge there. Your self-catering, there's plenty of stuff that I could pig out on, but I'd got a fish supper in mind. The stuff that was kind of the options I had in the fridge were a bit too healthy. And then we remembered that the day before we'd been driving back from Revo Abbey. Revo, I couldn't help singing it, Kaiser Kampf, Fühler, Lebensraum. It's a Mannix song anyway, but it's spelled different. But Revo is this the abbey that you've got to go to, the old Cistercian monastery, 1322, sacked by the Scots. Oh, sorry about that. And then of course you get the 1500s. It's the dissolution of the monasteries and kind of so proddies. Sorry about that. I'm not actually a proddy, but I felt a bit bad until it was £17.50 at the pay to get in, but it was well worth it. But the way driving back home, it was absolutely teeming down, the rain that hit that part of the country. And, so I saw the fish and chip shop at first and thought, I'll clock that for the morning. And on the way out, you go through Thirsk where they have the racing, and I noticed in the roundabout was this McDonald's. And I went to that McDonald's, and the thing is, I went back to that the next day when I couldn't get the fish supper in Helmsley. And there's the big roundabout. There was 2 horses in the middle of the roundabout, and it turns out there's, for travelling people, they've got a wee kind of camp just next to the drive-in McDonald's, so they had the horses in the middle of the roundabout. I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. That's actually quite symbolic. And I went, and we didn't even look at it was like, it doesn't matter how much we got to pay, we're just getting what we want. And of course my wife she's 2 years of getting what was the Big Mac meal. Big Mac didn't go large either. 2 Big Mac meals, Coca-Cola please. And I'm like, but I need something else, And I thought, do they still do chicken McNuggets? Because usually I just go and get a Big Mac meal when I go to McDonald's. I do actually only go to McDonald's like once a year or so. But I do, honestly, this is rotisserie chickens, the fat you're looking at just now. It's mostly rotisserie chickens and cakes and crisps. Usually go to McDonald's once or twice a year. But like Big Mac meal every time. But this time I was like, Big Mac, I'll get the chicken. Do you have chicken? And I thought this thing in the menu that said chickens, a chicken snack box. So I thought it was just going to be the same size as the McNuggets. That I remember of old. So I was like, how many pieces? The guy says, what you got? What's the maximum? 9. I'll take 9 then. I think it was like £8 or something. Didn't even clock. Just you pick up at the other window, right? And I opened this thing up, and they're massive. they're like big kind of goujon sized things. They're proper, but it was like a KFC. I had 9 of these things, and I'm getting them down me, and then the barbecue sauce in there, and the Coca-Cola, and then the Big Mac's going in there, and the cheese and the burger, and it was just such a phenomenal, absolutely fantastic feeling. It just tasted, and that's the thought. McDoggin, this is definitely an option. You know, the buzz I'm getting out of eating this, I'm making all these really sexual noises as I'm eating this thing. There's probably folk who get off. Well, in fact, it's you, Alec. You would get off watching folk eating their McDonald's. So I devised that, but also at the same time, it made me realise that just, just you're a bit lost. But you've been driving for years and you couldn't get the fish and chip shop. Doesn't matter. We get there in the end. Got there in the end. The territory, the terrain. I'd been there the day before in the pissing rain. It was only the second time I'd ever driven through Thirsk in my life. But I'd picked up just enough. I just found enough to keep me going. So this is the same. I've been driving down in England in these kind of holidays for years now. Always a different part of the country, but it's the same scenario. You're driving down, you're going through Scotch Corner so many times, or you're going down to the lakes or whatever down the other side of the country, down the M74, down the M6, or you're going across the A66, then Scotch Corner, and that kind of stuff. And by that point on, it gets slightly different, but it's the same process. You're just looking for a better result every time. And this is another pre-season at Rangers. This is another whole lot of new signings. We've got a head coach. What do we want out of him this season? We want the league, but we don't think we're going to win. We think it's too early for him to win the league. He's got a 17-point gap to bridge. You can guarantee tonight's result will mean there's no way we're playing Celtic in the first All-Firm game of the season at Ibrox in August. No chance. They've seen, I think Brendan and Peter will have seen enough tonight to know that game's got to get cancelled under the European pretence that they're allowed to cancel it or postponed, put back a bit. So I think if we keep going the way we signalled tonight, we're going to put in a challenge for the league title, but it's a 17-point gap to bridge is maybe a bit much. We need to just do as well as we possibly can on all fronts and show progress under this new management, this new ownership, and with all these new players. I think we're well on the road to doing that from the start of time. It's a new situation, it's a new road, we didn't get the fish supper, we ended up with a McDonald's, it's just as good. The whole thing I'm trying to say there is we will get there in the end. It's familiar enough, it's different, but it's familiar enough that we know how to negotiate it. We're going to be okay, and we're going to end up getting that big happy meal that we require one way or another by the end of it. But I think since the beginning of time, whether it's a wee Wayne who's got their arm up like that while they're working away with a crane or a pencil. You're like, what is it you're drawing? No, I don't want to show you. I'm not finished yet. Or whether it's Caravaggio or Lucien Freud or somebody like that who's, they don't want. There's no way allowed in their studio until the work's actually finished. They're not going to let you see any preliminary drawings or anything like that. Or writers who are, editing stuff to the nth degree, and they actually have to have the publisher has to pull the book off them. You never actually finish a book, you just have to publish it and that kind of thing. The arts is different for football. Football's artisanal. It approaches art at times depending on who's playing it, but football managers don't have that privilege of artists where they can conceal their working until they think it's ready. They're working their workings, their preliminary sketches, the edits. It all has to be done in public. And you have to show enough and all them to retain the public's faith going forward, so they'll back you. We always talk at Rangers about how as long as we can see progress being made, we don't mind, and that's a lie. We don't. We did things under Philip Clement in Europe, the first time we'd ever beaten a Spanish team on Spanish soil in European competition. Let's say 2 successive seasons of going straight through, missing out the last 32 and going straight into the last 16 under 2 different group stage formats. But we didn't see enough progress under Philip Clement. We still hounded him out the door basically because he had a cataclysmic result against Queen's Park, a domestic result. But I think with this manager or this head coach, this is his first outing in public. This is his first showing of a preliminary sketch of what he's actually working on, and it's just there was a few bits in the first half that needed to get the eraser out there and get a wee bit of Tipp-Ex, and I think John Souttar was applying that as we went along. But by the second half, started applying a bit of colour, got a bit of help, a bit of following wind, and it started to look like the beginnings of a proper portrait, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that ends, and you're looking forward to this podcast ending. It's because I'm away, folks, because I'm really conscious that I should be doing more smaller pods, regular smaller pods to keep you going during the summer. But I feel guilty about the fact that this is the only time I get to go away on holiday when there's so much going on at Rangers. I will be back at some point before the second leg, be it a preview pod or a deeper review, a proper analytical review of what happened tonight. But thanks for your patience, and I hope you all enjoyed the game.